Hey guys, so welcome to another episode of the show. So as you know, the show is called High Ticket Coaching and Consulting Strategy and Growth. And this show, the theme of it is where we bring together, we find individuals who've built successful coaching and consulting businesses and invite them on to have them share their story. And today we have our guest, Sandra Passon. Hey Sandra, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
Yes, I love having you here as well too. Now, the question now becomes, okay, so tell us in terms of what type of coaching consulting business do you run?
I have a mindset and empowerment coaching business.
Mindset empowerment.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, what got you into mindset and empowerment?
So it originally started, I launched my business it's coming up on 8 years ago now. And
Hmm.
started out just very much as a generic life coach and was doing it just part-time while I was working in fitness. And then over time, as I worked with more and more individuals and started working with groups, I realized that I was nerding out like in a really deep and serious and addictive way on the mindset piece. And I realized just how incredibly transformational and powerful and important the mindset piece is really. And I say mindset and empowerment because it's all part of the same thing. But I love working with people on changing the way they think, changing the way they talk to themselves, changing the way they look at the world, because when they do that, then everything else starts to fall into place.
Yeah, that is so awesome. Mindset is such a critical piece to everything that we do. And most people, I know for myself, when I first got started on this whole personal development journey, I had no idea what mindset was. It was just
So
like,
yeah,
no,
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 me
no,
neither.
just whatever. Versus now, as an entrepreneur, I think mindset is one of the most critical pieces that we can focus on as we grow. Now, so tell me why, because you said mindset and empowerment, like what's your definition of empowerment?
So I always tend to talk, I think of this whole, personal development journey that we go on as a transformation from the inside out. And
Hmm.
in the beginning, I was resistant to the word empowerment because it felt kind of cheesy, 90s motivational speaker kind of vibe. And I was like,
Right.
but then more and more when the more I do this work, the more I realize that it really is about empowering ourselves, and in my case, empowering others
Hmm.
to find their inner strength, right? Like I think back to my background too. I worked in fitness for about 7 or 8 years before I got into coaching. And even though it was a different vehicle, even though it was outdoor boot camp in San Francisco. So we were helping people find their inner athlete. And I knew that that wasn't it, but there was something about that I was like, that is what I want. I want like the feeling of you'd have a client walk in, kind of shy and timid or just not believing in themselves. And then after 6 weeks of a fitness boot camp, they would find this inner strength, this inner athlete. And I was like, there's something about that. What happened to them on the inside is what I really wanted. And so then as I got into life coaching and now more specifically mindset coaching and empowerment, it's to me, it's all about building up their relationship, their self-belief, their relationship with themselves, and the self-love and self-acceptance and self-worth. And from that place, it's like they can kind of handle anything and everything. Like I always use the metaphor of a tree being firmly planted in the ground and able to weather kind of any storm. We become more resilient. We know how to think about things and manage our emotions in such a way that, when the shit hits the fan, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on the show, but when things get turbulent, obviously like what's going on right now, but from anything from a global scale down to just personal challenges, when we have the inner strength, then it's like, bring it on. I can
Yeah.
handle the outer things so much more when I'm strong on the inside.
Yeah. So powerful. Now, next question becomes, how did you get your start? What got you into this in the first place?
Oh man, it was not a straight line or a logical path by any means. Part of it is I'm almost grateful that I didn't know that coaching was a thing. Had I known coaching was a thing, I would have started my business at age 12. However, I didn't find coaching until my late 20s. I'm 39 now. And for most of my 20s, I tried every different job imaginable. I worked in tech, I worked in startups, I worked in finance, I worked in the service industry, I worked for entrepreneurs. I did all this stuff and none of it landed. And it's partly due to that journey, I think, of realizing, my family's in Scandinavia. I can't do the 9 to 5, 2 weeks of vacation thing. I love to travel. So I realized I needed a different kind of unconventional path. Um, but through trying all of these different things, I realized that none of them were even close. And I needed something that was purpose driven, that was mission driven, that felt like a calling. However, I finally, when I found my way kind of, in a windy pathway through process of elimination and then finding fitness, which again was like the closest thing. And then
Mm-hmm.
through the business world in San Francisco, which is, very open-minded and progressive, I met a lot of coaches. And then as I started meeting more coaches, I was like, I want what they have. Wait a
Mm-hmm.
minute. I was like, they have freedom. They get to do what they love. They get to be their own boss. So then I found the coaching world. I discovered what it's like to be an entrepreneur, fell in love with both. And then by then, as I'm kind of turning 30 and realizing, oh my gosh, this makes perfect sense. I've been reading, all the self-help classics, the Chicken Soup for the Soul, the Celestial Prophecy, like all the cheesy good stuff just for myself since I was a kid. I just didn't realize that it was a whole industry. And once I realized it was an industry, I was like, I'm home. I'm home. This is exactly what I'm here to do on this planet. But I'm also thankful that I went through all those other things because it was so clear to me that, nope, not finance. Oh, heck no. Definitely not that. Definitely not that. So it was a very windy, and interesting and random path that got me here. But once I got here, I was like, this is it.
Yeah, yeah. That's so wonderful as well too, because I think it was the same thing for me as well too when I was first getting started. Just going through the whole personal development, the books, the audio tapes, all these different things. I remember listening to the Brian Tracy's, the
Yeah,
Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar's, and just consuming all that stuff. And at the time I had no idea what it was. I just thought it was
right.
like, man, this stuff is like some really cool stuff,
A
and
lot of
got into it, and then realized that's a whole industry there. Yeah. Fascinating. So, what in terms of because I know that you said your journey hasn't been as smooth because I believe that most individuals who do think about starting a coaching and consulting business, they see this like, hey, I'm here and I'm just going to get up there and I'll just make six figures and seven figures and then it's just a straight path, right?
Mhm.
So, was that the case for you?
Oh man, no, it was also a very winding path. Looking back now, I used to have judgment for it. Now I just have nothing but compassion and love for the older version of me or the past version of me who, when I started, like honestly, just because of who I am as a human and as my experience in fitness and everything, I would have been an amazing coach, or I was an amazing coach from day one,
Hmm.
100%. But I didn't trust that. I started my coach training and I was so convinced because I didn't have the confidence yet. And I didn't understand that, to get the confidence, you have to actually go do the work and do the coaching. So I did my entire coach training program and then I did an entire leadership program and was just like so obsessed with getting all the, I did what most of us do, which is like, I need more training, more training, more training to be good enough.
Hmm.
And once I got my first client, remember I saw her weekly in person for 6 months for free, pro bono, because I was like, I just need to practice. And then I finally started charging people and realized, oh my gosh, I should have probably started practicing way earlier.
Yeah.
Clients who are paying have more skin in the game. They're different. And looking back to it now, it's like had I known what I know now, I could have condensed my 8-year journey down into probably about 6 months and done it a lot faster. But
Yeah.
again, I'm grateful for the winding path. So much of what I really value and what I learned about this journey too is what I learned by stumbling my way through it. And of course, I want to help as many people, find their way to this level with a lot less twists and turns and stumbles if they can.
Yeah. Now, why do you think that's the case? Why do you think? Because I think it's the same thing on my journey as well too. As I went through, looking back, it's always like, man, I should have done this a lot sooner. I should have taken that action a lot sooner. And it's always not until you get a little bit older and you realize, like, looking back, it's like, whoa. So why do you think that's the case? Why do you think it's such a barrier? Because I know we talk about it now, and we could kind of laugh about it, but there's literally someone in this situation right now thinking that, well, maybe I can't charge, or maybe I got to do this for free, for like maybe the next 6 months or something until they get there. What do you think causes that?
Hmm. The first thing that comes to mind is there's so much information out there and there's a lot of conflicting information. And now that we live in an age of all the information is at your fingertips,
Right.
you can look up anything from how to build a website to probably how to be a good coach, on YouTube. And I think in the beginning we get excited and we want to consume all the information and we do all the free webinars and download all the freebies and listen to 10,000 different people at the same time. And we try to do, or at least in my case, I was trying to do so many different things at once. I didn't really have a plan or a strategy. I just kind of was throwing all the spaghetti I could find at the wall and hoping something would work, you know?
Hmm.
And it really wasn't until I started working with business coaches, which I'm like so grateful for all of my teachers near and far and mentors and everything, that I realized that it's helpful to have some guidance along the way, and more focused guidance instead of just trying to draw from, all these different people and inspiration online and then kind of cobble it all together. So I think it can be, information overwhelm, too many different things to choose from. And then I think just the very human thing of not thinking that we're good enough and
Hmm.
not knowing how to trust ourselves, or at least not trust ourselves in delivering this beautiful service that is coaching. Um, so yeah, a little bit of the external and a little bit of the internal, maybe.
Yeah, awesome. Now, next question becomes, how do you stay in the zone? Because I know that as an entrepreneur, as you build a business, there's a lot of ups and downs and a lot of roller coaster kind of like emotions when things either don't work out the way you think, all these different things. How do you keep yourself in the zone? What do you do?
Oh my gosh, I could talk about this question for an hour because there's so many great answers to it. But so the thing for me personally, and
Hmm.
what's most important, so a huge introvert. I'm a huge empath. I'm a highly sensitive person. That's also who I work with. My clients tend to be the more, not all introverts, but mostly empathic, very sensitive people. And so for me and my people, we have to protect our energy. Like that's number one for me. So I've realized through a lot of trial and error that I have to be very vigilant about my self-care, perhaps more than the average person. And that's something I teach to my clients, like step one, take care of your self-care. And that's, it's just part of our maintenance. So for me, that's things like making sure I get enough alone time as an introvert, making sure I take really good care of my emotions, having good emotional hygiene, like allowing myself to feel, because I'm an empath, I feel things so deeply. So I have to let those emotions run through me, of lots of, angry dance parties and ugly cries in the shower and screaming to pillows and stuff like that, and breath work and things, meditation to move the emotions is really important. And then of course all the things like fitness and sleeping and whatever. So self-care, definitely a huge part of staying in the zone. Another part of staying in the zone is just is the combination of having a guidance and community. So for me, currently it's my business mentor and our sisterhood, our community, our mastermind. Um, and whether I'm working with, like right now I'm in a year-long mastermind, sometimes I'm doing shorter programs, but to always have at least one person who has the business I want, has the life I want, has done it all, is a few steps ahead of me, who I can look up to and say, okay, she's done it, it's possible,
Hmm.
and get really targeted, personalized strategy from. But then the other piece of that is having the community. It's like, as entrepreneurs, if we talk to only people with 9 to 5 jobs and compare notes, we're going to think we're absolutely bananas. It's like they won't understand. So it's so important, I think, for us to have community and be able to talk shop with other entrepreneurs who are on the roller coaster too, and can be like, oh no, you're just on one of the downs, you'll be fine. And
Hmm.
they can help pick us up off the ground when we're having, meltdown number 10,000 of the day or whatever. So definitely self-care, mentor, and community. And then for me, probably doing my own mindset work is the other biggest piece. I'm
Hmm.
very intentional about morning rituals and doing, I call it positivity brainwashing, which is listening to so much positive, empowering content, Audible podcasts, all that good stuff when I walk, when I run, when I do laundry, So just, immersing my brain in uplifting, positive content that's relevant to either entrepreneurship or self-development. And then I find I get the most kind of excited energy and inspiration from anything that's a little bit more in the woo realm. So anything related to manifestation, law of attraction, that kind of stuff, just like fires me up. So I listen to that. I watch YouTube videos, guided meditations, visualizations, stuff like that.
Yeah, perfect. I love it. And that's a big one. I think you hit on the big three, which is community, mentors, and just doing your own kind of like self-care, which is working on your own stuff, some alone time and stuff like that. Because I know a big one, as you mentioned, with this entrepreneurial road, the journey, it's one when you first get started, if it's just you just have your family, your friends, and those different types. And just like with myself, right, when I first started off, I saw my family, my friends, they were doing the thing they've always did, which is 9 to 5, these different things. and then I'm here trying to build a business and trying to take the advice from family and friends and realizing that, man, like, as you said, am I crazy? Like, should I be doing this? Like, is it worth it? So it's
Being
a
so well,
totally
they're so well intentioned, they want the best for you, and but they're seeing
exactly.
your journey through their own lens of maybe scarcity, or just the corporate is like, the safety version. And so yeah, it's like, yeah, and man, it breaks my heart because they get so much terrible advice from well-meaning family and friends, and it's such an interesting practice to learn to, like, share little tidbits of it with them, but maybe not share too much or scare them or ask for the blinders
Yeah,
on. Talk to them
yeah,
about things, and then talk to mentors and fellow entrepreneurs over here.
yeah. So I'm here making seven figures in my business, and my mom, she still thinks I need to get a real job because she's like, "What are you doing?
So funny.
You gotta go get some security."
Something on the internet? Are you? Yeah.
Yeah,
Is it legal? Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So what do you have in terms of your because you're big into the mindset, the empowerment and stuff like that. So what's in your toolbox? What are a few secrets you could share with us in terms of what you find really, really works well in terms of just helping individuals, your clients get some good results?
So I would say probably number one for me is always defaulting to gratitude. Like I always say, if I could literally only teach one tool to every person I meet or every client I ever have, it's gratitude. Here's all this other advanced fancy stuff and hypnosis and things, and all of that is great. And I'm like, gratitude is the most bang for your buck. It's completely free. It can take no time at all, and it never gets old. So some of my favorite gratitude, I mean, for people who have never done gratitude before, just doing any kind of a gratitude practice can be life-changing. And I love working with people they're kind of new to personal development, because then I get to blow their minds. Like, what? I feel totally different. It's been 2 weeks. I know, But yeah, gratitude. My favorite ones are first thing in the morning when I wake up, I just start saying thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you in my head, like while I'm making the bed, while I'm making coffee, not
Hmm.
to anyone or anything in particular, just getting the vibe of that. My other favorite one is doing a gratitude rampage, or a rampage of appreciation, which is an Abraham Hicks thing, where you just start with like what's around you. I'm, grateful for my hands and this computer and my health. And then you go a little bit bigger, and maybe you get a little philosophical, and then you start doing gratitude for things that haven't even happened yet that you want to manifest. And it's like, I'm so effing grateful for my 7-figure business, and I'm not at 7 figures yet. That's one of my goals. So I rant about that a lot. But
Hmm.
then getting into the energy and the frequency of just so much gratitude, where you feel the feelings of having already done or received the thing. And it's just such an instant vibe lifter. And then the more we practice, the better we get at it. So that's a really simple one. The other kind of beginner mindset thing that I always like to teach people is just to practice being aware of their thoughts, because if we don't know what we're thinking, then it's hard to change it. So it's like, and there's again all these like fancy and more advanced things we can do with our mindset, with our thoughts, but we have to just be aware of them in the first place. So what I'll usually have clients do in the beginning is just take a journal and draw a line down the middle, and then as much as possible for like 2 weeks, write down every time they catch themselves having a crappy thought, which could be really mean, or it could be just slightly, limiting belief or whatever it is. And what most of them find is most of the things they're thinking to themselves are not only incredibly mean, like they're things that they would never say to anyone else in their life, but they say
Hmm.
them to themselves on repeat all day long, but most of them are actually completely absurd and totally false, right? But they don't realize it because it feels like truth when it's in their head. So just by the pure act of writing it down, they become so much more aware. And then over time, they can start realizing like, oh, I caught myself red-handed thinking this crappy thought, like all I have to do is choose a slightly better one. And then over
Hmm.
time, choose better and better and better ones, more empowering ones. And then you move on to really powerful affirmations and I am statements and all this stuff. But gratitude and just having awareness of what their thoughts are two of my favorite tools. My third one I'll share is what I mentioned before, which is positivity brainwashing.
Hmm.
Again, it's just like you just feed your mind with so much good stuff. So I have maybe 4 of my favorite podcasts I listen to. And then I'm always listening to at least one self-help book on Audible. And I consume probably about a book a week plus all the podcasts, just based on, because I can just pop it in when I'm doing the dishes, when I take a walk, when I drive, like, and it serves as a counterbalance to all the constant negativity. No matter how we consume media or any of that, we're getting so much negative stuff thrown at us all the time. And I think it's healthy just to go from like this much negative with this little positive, just to at least balance it out and then slightly tip the scales to being erring on the side of more positive.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, I love what you said because that's one thing I noticed for myself as well too. Because I never really got into when I was younger, at least maybe my early 20s. I never really did the personal development. It was just like whatever it was what it was. And then when I started getting into like the books, the motivational type stuff, it kind of started really changing my thinking. I kind of saw how based on what I was listening to, it kind of affected me. And I went on like this binge watching thing because literally I wasn't like doing anything, but I was just listening. And I feel like that's one of the things that really helped me as an entrepreneur as well too, because it got to a point where like when it got to the point, because I believe on all of our journeys, it gets hard, it's going to get difficult. There's going to be things we need to do that we don't want to do, and all of these different things. And the whole thing is, how do you respond when you get in that situation? Do you run? Do you go high? Do you quit? Do you give up? Like, what do you do? Or do you keep moving forwards? And I think
Mhm.
I listened to these tapes so much over and over again for like years, not really be doing anything, but just listening. And when it came time to actually do get started, that's when it was like almost, it was almost like I had like brainwashed myself to like like there was no quit inside of me. Like I remember when I first started my business, I literally almost went, well, I did go broke in a sense. I lost like 100 like $30,000.
Mhm.
Or lost all my retirement savings, lost all of it. But there was something inside of me that was still crazy enough to feel like, okay, you could still do this, man. And I stuck with it. And that's really what kind of changed everything for me. So I definitely know that as far as the attitude, like making sure you take care of yourself and that, as you called your routine of making sure you have something positive going in every single day. If you have the time, that's like a game changer because you'll need it. It's only,
Yeah.
it's not if, it's when really, right?
Totally. Mindset, my mental and emotional hygiene, just daily, just like
Mhm.
we brush our teeth and floss every day. I think we should be putting positive, healthy, helpful material into our heads and doing the practices that keep us. And especially, I mean, I think for everyone, but especially for those of us who are in some sort of a service business, where we have purpose-driven, mission-driven companies where we want to make the world a better place, where we want to help people. Like we can only help people if we're filling our own cup. We can't pour from an empty cup. So I think the more, there's this whole assumption that like, oh, self-care and all of that is selfish or it's a luxury. And I'm like, no, the
Mhm.
more self-care and the more you work on yourself, the more you have to give, the more energy you have, the more income you have, the higher your income is, the more impact you're able to have just through donating or through resources. And it's like, it's such a beautiful thing to fill ourselves up more and more. And then not only are we not reaching into an empty cup to give? It's like our cup is so full. The metaphor I like is like your cup is so full that you're just splashing water everywhere. And it's just, you can't help but help people. You can't help but inspire others because you're so like radiant and on fire and feeling great that you're going to naturally inspire people. And then you have the actual energy to go and do great work in the world.
Yeah, love it. Now we talked about some of the good stuff, the positive stuff. Now let's focus a bit on the negative stuff, right? So the stuff that's really, because just like with me, as I grow my business, I'm noticing within myself there's things I have to consistently work on to kind of help me get to the next level. Just like I know the first ones was like building a team, right? Because I've always been myself, I've been an introvert and stuff like that, and I've always like just been really self-dependent, self-reliant. And then I kind of went into my business and I realized, okay, I'm doing everything. Like I need to bring people in, I need to do this. But for the life of me, I kept pushing that away, like pushing these things away. And it wasn't until I had to realize, okay, you can't do this alone. And I started including other people, getting them in, having them do their part while I do my part and stuff, and really just trust in, okay, I don't have to like micromanage. Like the people I've surrounded myself with, they're pretty good people. So things could happen. They'll make stuff happen. So do you have any things that you found within yourself as far as things that you know you should be doing, but you still kind of struggle with it a bit?
Mm, that's a good question. I'm sure there are many things. There's always so much room for growth. I'd say for me, a lot of it has to do. It's mostly my own things that I bump up against, old habits, old conditioning, old programming. I feel like I'm constantly finding new layers of things to release and let go of.
Hmm.
Certainly going into the zone of having a team has been amazing. I was solo act for the first probably 5 years. I hired I'd had like project-based assistants, virtual assistants, but I hired my first kind of steady VA, who's now just an integral part of my team about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. And that's been a game changer. And I've had support coaches and stuff to help me with my group programs. And it is it's a beautiful thing to get that help, but also it's a beautiful opportunity to step into leadership just within your own company, which is so cool. Like I've studied tons of leadership and I love that stuff. And from it being in fitness and team sports and stuff as a kid, like I love that leadership space. But when I started this journey as a coach and as an entrepreneur, I never thought I would have a team. I actually was like, I don't want to be one of those people managing a bunch of people. I don't want employees. I just want to be a solo act because I want to be free and, digital nomad and all that. And then a year and a half ago when I was like, wait a minute, if I want to scale, like if I want to hit multiple 7, 8 figures, I certainly am not going to try to do that alone. Like I need to delegate basically everything at that point. I was like, crap, I better start somewhere.
Yeah.
And then slowly building. But it's interesting for me, it's been a challenge to, um, I've erred on the side of being too nice. So it's been like my VA has kind of had to teach me how to be more clear about what I want and how to really ask for what I need instead of like tiptoeing around and that kind of stuff. So I think I've grown a lot as a leader thanks to
Hmm.
just having to do that. And
Yeah.
then managing support coaches and stuff too. But yeah, the team is an interesting thing. And then just, every level, bumping into my own upper limits and fear of success and fear of failure and all that kind of stuff and getting to go through each level and heal each level. And
Hmm. And I
that's my
guess, yeah,
journey.
the final question to you is, when you do hit those levels, what do you do? How do you overcome when you do hit? Because as you said, as I've realized as well too, in business, like you never arrive. There's no such thing as when I get there. It's always like you get there, but then getting there comes with a whole bunch of challenges which you got to keep reworking through. So what's your game? What's your strategy for doing that, keeping that pace?
So, um, it's reminding me because the first one of those that I hit really hard was probably a little over 2 years ago now. It was the first time I sold like a bigger ticket item package, like the bigger ticket than I had ever sold anything. And
Hmm.
I literally I decided I'm like, I'm going to create this super high end package. And I was excited about it, but I knew that it would be a big leap for me in my own confidence and conviction to actually sell it. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to start selling it, but I'm expecting my belief to take like another 6 months to a year to catch up to a place where I actually believe in it enough where somebody else will say yes. But I was like,
Hmm.
I'm just going to practice. So I started just offering it to people. And I offered it to somebody one day, fully not expecting them to say yes at all. I was like, and just so you know, I have this VIP package, blah, blah, blah. And the person said yes to it. And I was like, oh, wait, what? And and in the moment, and then we got all these signed up and everything, and it was great. But within the next couple of days, I crashed so hard, and for probably a solid month, I was in total anxiety, like the whole time. I was
Hmm.
freaking out because suddenly I was like, I don't know how I'm ever going to deliver this much service. It's not possible. I'm going to get like it just every single limiting belief I'd ever had came back tenfold. And I did a lot of emotional release, a lot of crying, a lot of processing, a lot of journaling, a lot of talking it out with colleagues, a lot of talking it out with mentors, and finally just had to kind of decide that, okay, if this was my ceiling, like I'm raising it, I'm raising my standards, I'm raising my self-belief. And ultimately when I looked at it, I was like, I know that I can deliver that much value. I know I have delivered that much value. I just need to catch up in my own conviction around it.
Yeah.
About a month.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and now I would say I can do that process much faster, but
Hmm.
I hit those bumps in the road all the time. It's just a process that gets more and more second nature. Whereas in the beginning, it's like, "Ooh, okay, better journal this." And then you think everything is coming, you're like, I was ready to throw in the towel. I thought I couldn't handle it. I mean, it was like really dramatic at the time.
Yeah. Got you. And I guess my approach too when I do hit these limits, because I seek them out because before in the past I used to kind of like shy away from them. I used to like try to look for the comfort, and I kind of noticed that within myself, like looking for the comfort versus today when I do things, it's like I seek the most uncomfortable things I could ever do. Just like even when I started the show, I had no idea how I was gonna do it. I just like want to start a show, and I just like did it. And I said, well, I got to make sure this happens. And I just reorganized my schedule to do like six per day, 6 days a week. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't think it was possible, but I just did it because it forced me to grow so fast that, and the entire time it was just uncomfortable. So for me, like when I go through my life, my business, I'm always looking for the edge. I like being on the edge of what's possible. To where in the past I would be like that would scare the crap out of me, but
Mm.
today it's like my new normal, which is if it's not like if I don't feel like I'm like pushing to the point of like either exhaustion or like my breaking point, I don't want to do it because I feel like I'm growing too slow, right?
Mm.
So but you seem to be on path on track with that as well too, because again the mindset stuff is really where this type of stuff lives. It's in not competing with the outside world. It's based on more, hey, who are you as a person, what's going on internally, and being able to override that. So tell me now, man, we could go on talking for days, but I guess we got to come to an end sometime. So tell us, if someone wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way to do so?
So the easiest way to reach me is just to go to my website or to just Google my name. I'm completely positive I'm the only one of me.
Hmm.
So Sandra Passing, if you Google me, it's basically the same on all platforms, sandrapassing.com. I'm Sandra Passing on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, on all the places, on LinkedIn. So I'm super easy to find, and I pretty much use all the platforms equally. So they can message me, they can email me, they can fill out the contact form on the website. They can pretty much give me a little poke from any platform, and I would love to connect with people.
Awesome, Sandra. Well, hey, appreciate you so much for stopping by. Appreciate you making the time. And any final thoughts before we end?
My final thought for anyone who's listening is just to know that you have this incredible, beautiful potential inside of you and to believe in it. And even if you don't believe in it now, there's work that you can do that'll help you get there. And once you have unshakable belief in yourself, anything is possible. And it's a really exciting, exhilarating adventure to be on the path to finding that.
Love it. Well, hey, thank you so much for sharing, and we shall be in touch, okay?
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. You're welcome.